Hi there, my name is Mallory Snyder. Today I'm going to be presenting over support for children during sexual abuse examinations. The problem is that children who have been sexually abused in their past, they have to get these examinations in order to prove that they've been abused, but these examinations end up causing more trauma for the child and just making the situation worse. The examination, if the sexual abuse has occurred within 72 hours, includes body swabs, hair sampling, saliva sampling, blood tests, and clothing examination. Obviously, if the sexual abuse had happened in the past, they can't use these things because the DNA isn't going to pop up, or their hairs aren't going to be on your clothes anymore because you've washed it. So what they do in that case, if it's been in the past, is they do things like throat cultures. That's testing for if you ever have been orally sexually abused, or bruising or swelling. They have to document those by pictures, since bruises and swelling, they do go down and they do go away. They use those pictures in court cases to prove that there was abuse and prove the areas that there were abuse. They also do genital and anal area. They look at it with a light source. What they're looking for there is they're looking for just general swelling in that area, because that's not normal in a child. They also must do STD and STI testing, because unfortunately a lot of times when a child does get sexually abused, those things do show up in the end. For the woman, they have to do hymenal exams, and that would be looking for the same thing, just looking for swelling and tearing. They also will interview the child to get the child's point of the story, side of the story, but they can't go solely based off what the child says. That's why they have to look at it and examine them. Here's some examples of unusual bruising. Obviously, children, they get bruised very easily. They fall a lot. But if there's bruising in, for example, the eyes or the face, that's not normal bruising. Or if there's bruising in the butt area or in the other area, that's not normal. In the ear area, that would be from grabbing the child or closer to your private areas, inner thighs and all that. That's not normal bruising, and that's something that should be documented. The trauma that this causes is, since a child has already been traumatized and they already have trouble trusting an adult, it's hard for them to go into this exam and trust the doctor to do this exam, especially if they don't know what's going to happen. It just, in the end, causes more stress and anxiety for the child, which is not something that we want. Things that we can do to help is we can do immediate therapy afterwards. We can have a trustworthy adult in the room. We can thoroughly describe what is going to happen, not only before the procedure, but throughout the procedure, telling them what's going on, explaining that it's all okay. It's also important the environment that they're in. Making the room kid-friendly is so important. It's more intimidating to go into a room for a child that's just white blank walls and no pictures or bright colored things. Medical play is a good technique for getting their minds off of things. Also, we can use behavior control strategies and use of child life specialists. Here's how you make an environment more kid-friendly in a doctor's office. You can include play areas for the child to play with throughout the procedure. Having toys in there is really important. Having brightly painted walls and pictures all over. It's also important to have rewards at the end of the examination for doing a good job, such as like a sucker or a sticker. And televisions would also be a good idea. Behavior control strategies are actually strategies that teaches a child how to calm their nerves and control their behavior, control their breathing. There was actually an experiment called the blowing away experiment, where different children went in to go get a shot, And some of the children were told to blow away the pain, other children were told not to do anything. And it actually showed that the children who were told to blow away the pain experienced less pain. They said that they experienced less pain than the children who didn't. It's also important to use humor because studies show that that actually decreases pain in procedures. And medical play is actually something that I love talking about because I'm going into child life specialist, and I think the medical play is extremely important. Children use play to develop anyway, so I think it's important that we use it as a tactic for them while they're in the hospital as well. More pretend play actually results in higher emotional competency according to a study. So in the end, it's better for their overall well-being. And also, while children are playing, they can work through any feelings of fear or confusion that they have through their imagination play, because that's how children express themselves at that age. Some examples of medical play that they use in the hospital setting, and I've actually seen a lot of these used and it's really cool to see, is letting them play with real medical equipment such as stethoscopes, band-aids, syringes, masks, other little things like that that they can play with. It's also really fun to use dolls and equipment to show what's going to happen to them and letting them show you what they think is going to happen. Also giving them shots and band-aids to a doll that they might have. I saw this little girl in the hospital, she had a teddy bear, and before they gave her a shot, they gave the shot to the teddy bear, and so that made her want to get the shot too because she saw how tough her teddy bear was. Using medical play kits is a good way. Writing stories, poems, and drawing pictures, that would probably be for an older age. Making sculptures using medical equipment, and a really fun one is syringe painting, which they actually do a lot at the hospital. And there's a picture of it up there, just this girl putting paint into the syringe and spraying it onto the piece of paper. Kids love doing that. Child life specialists they use these medical play practices every single day in the hospital, and I think it's important that we use them in not only the hospital but also in other settings as well. They could be an important resource because they have been proven to work really well in the hospital setting in calming nerves of children, and not only do they do this medical play, they assess the child so they see what cognitive stage they're at, and by using that they determine what different medical play strategies they're going to use. Some statistics is that the fear of the unknown is what scares children the most, which is why it's so important to explain the procedure before to children. Another statistic is that more than half of the nurses reported to turn towards a child life specialist when they were stressed out in a situation, which proves that even nurses and doctors in the hospital setting, they realize that how important child life specialists are, and they know that they do help a lot. A little quote from a child life specialist says, "I think the Department of Child Life often goes unnoticed because we're kind of in the background. But I do believe that if you took child life away, children would not be as fast and they would have poor coping skills, which translate to poor life skills later." What that shows is that these techniques that they use, the medical play techniques, actually help their development in the end. They help them cope later on in life, especially in sexual examinations, because if that child can learn to trust the doctor that's examining them, later on in life they'll have better overall relationships as well. Another quote from a psychologist says, "The contribution a child life specialist makes to a team and to a child's experience has real measurable outcomes." I don't think people in the field are doing as good as a job as they can in demonstrating that through research, but anecdotally and from bits and pieces of research we can put together, there is data that would substantiate a really critical contribution. Basically, what that's saying is that there's not a ton of research out there about child life specialists yet because it is still a growing field. But as of the research right now, they've made a huge contribution to the medical field and to stress relief for children. So, in conclusion, although sexual exams, the trauma of it can't completely be avoided, there's different things that we can do to make the overall experience a little better for the child. And such as therapy, the environment. The environment is a huge thing. Medical play, and of course the usage of a child life specialist. I know it's a growing field, and I think it's important that as the field grows, we branch out and start using them in different ways because it could prove to help in other areas as well. Children need familiarity and explanation in stressful situations because that makes them feel more comfortable, and that's why it's important to talk to them before the procedure, to let them get to know the doctor before. Sexual exams are meant to help the child in the end and not to traumatize them even more. So by using the resources we have, we should make this a better overall experience for the children and try to help them in the end, help them get away from the parent or from the guardian or whoever was abusing them, get them away from them and let them be a child. They've already had to learn how to grow up. We need to let them live, let them be a child, let them play. These are my resources. Thank you so much for listening.